so this is Sherri with Outline of a Murder here with Nick. So I'm going to go ahead and let you, Nick, introduce yourself. And then do you want to share the story or me share the story of why we're sitting here today?
Okay, you could share the story.
Okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Nick Mondragon, and I am an executive assistant at the Clovis-Curry County Chamber of Commerce in Clovis.
Yes. Well, and so that's where this got started because we had, what's it called, where you get the new board members, all the information that they need, introduce yourself.
Board member orientation.
Oh, yeah. And so we all of us were around the table except for the staff. So you guys obviously were downstairs working. And I think I was the first one to share some legal background. And so before you knew it, everybody around the table, they were like sharing, some legal history, which was hilarious. Like one's like, yeah, I got my driver's license suspended for this one time. And another one's like, yeah, I did this. I'm like, wow. Anyway, so you come up because you have a true crime podcast. You guys come up and we're introducing the unusual facts. And so that's kind of how it all got started. And you went a legal route, but not one I expected. So basically your words were like, I once had lunch with a murderer. And I'm all, what? Wait a minute. Back up. What happened? So that obviously got me interested.
Right.
Okay. So break down, just the story, what happened. And I'd really like also to kind of get into the gut feeling aspect as well. But tell us about how you got yourself in this situation.
Okay. So I have worked the front desk for 19 years.
Wow.
Or going on 19 years at the chamber. And so just one day, this was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So one day I noticed a woman sitting outside the office.
Mm-hmm.
She was sitting out on the park bench and her car was parked nearby and her hood was up.
Okay. Because you're on a main street.
Yes,
a lot of people go down that street.
Yes, we're on Main Street. It was on Main Street at that time. And she was sitting out there, and I was like, oh, there must be something wrong with her car. So I went outside, and I checked on her, and I said, we're the Chamber of Commerce. You're sitting in front of the chamber. How can I help you? Is there something going on? She's like, well, my car is acting a little funny.
Okay.
And she says, if I just let it set for a little bit, it'll be okay. It'll start.
Okay.
But you just have to give it a little bit.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that's all right. Well, let me give you some water. You're sitting outside. It's a warm day. Here's some water, that sort of thing. And, she was very grateful. And I said, you can come inside, under the air conditioner. She said, oh, no, I'm fine. I'll just sit outside.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I went back and checked on her. And she says, oh, I'm going to have somebody come and look at my car. It's still not starting, that sort of thing.
So she was out there for a while then?
Oh, yeah. At least, oh my gosh, half a day.
Oh, so it was a while.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you're seeing this, you're a helpful person. You go out there to help her, you're checking on her, and she's still sitting out there at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
And somebody came by, worked on her car. They were under the hood. They got it started. She came in. She thanked me, for the water and for checking on her. And she's like, well, I'm going to go to church. There's a church service I'm going to. And I'm like, well, do you need a ride? She said, oh, no, my car will make it. Everything's going to be fine. So she got in her car, took off. By this time, it's already the end of the day. So I go home.
Yeah.
Well, the next day, she comes back to the chamber. Her car's, running. She says, I'm taking it to the people who will work on my car.
Yeah.
The mechanic wanted to look at it again.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, well, I'm going to drop it off and I'm going to stay at a friend's house.
Okay.
And she says, I might need a ride later.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that's okay. That's something I can do, you know.
That's funny. And the reason I'm smiling is like I'm not as helpful as you. And so I probably wouldn't have even gone outside. But the fact that like she comes back, she's like, I might need a ride. My antennas would eventually, what do you mean you need a ride? I mean, I helped you one time. We take y'all over town.
Right.
But you being the nice person you are, you're like, okay, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't, and I thought, you know, we just need to help people, help our
Yep.
neighbor.
Yep.
And, you know, I didn't think anything of it until I she called the office.
Oh,
I didn't give her my personal phone
right.
number.
Smart.
So she called the office and was like, I need a ride. At this location. Can you come pick me up?
Oh, okay. So she calls you the office first to get you to see if she could have a ride.
Yes.
So she wanted you to basically meet her at the mechanic?
Yes.
Okay.
So meet her at the mechanic shop.
Okay.
And I said, okay, this is great. You know, it's during my lunch hour. It's not, you know,
Yeah.
too far out of my way. I don't have a lot to do.
Yeah.
That's okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I drive over there, and she's like, well, you know, I need to pick something up from the place I was staying at, my friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take me there? I forgot my dress.
Okay.
I was like, okay, that's
Adding to the list,
right.
Here.
That's it. Yeah. And so it's just getting to that point where it's like, okay, this is, you know, turning into much more than, you know, than I expected.
Yes. Yes. A glass of water has turned into a taxi service.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And she said, so I went over there. She told me where she was at.
Okay.
She got in the car and she was like, well, it's lunchtime. You have been so helpful. Let me buy you lunch.
Oh, okay.
I said, okay, that's really nice of you.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So she says, I really like fried chicken. What
Okay.
about you? And I was like, I like fried chicken as well.
Yes.
You know, nothing
Delicious.
out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Like do you want a cyanide burger or anything like
right. So I said, okay, that sounds fine. So she says, but I need to pick up my dress of
Okay.
where my friend's house where I stayed last night. I was like, okay. So we went by this house.
that? Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very nice house. I was like,
Okay.
in a very prominent part of town. I was very surprised,
Yeah.
you know. And we stopped in front of the house. She got out, went inside, and I think the owners of the house were walking out.
Okay.
And I don't know if she had called them to say, hey, just hand me my dress, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were walking out with her dress and they gave it to her. We got it, went on to the chicken place.
Okay.
And grabbed some lunch. And she said, you know, let's go back to the garage
Mm-hmm.
where they're working on my car and we can just eat out there.
Oh, okay.
So we went out there and found there was some chairs outside under a tree.
Oh, how nice.
And I was like, okay,
A picnic.
it felt like a picnic that you would have with your family.
Yes.
It was just
pleasant.
It really was. And so I started asking her, you know, about her life and you know where she's from and that sort of thing. And she wasn't real clear on where she was from, that sort of thing. But she was telling me her husband is a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Because at the time we have the Air Force base.
We
now
have
it's a special
right.
ops.
Right. And she was telling me that he was overseas. That's
Okay.
why she was alone. She was, you know, and her husband was overseas on an assignment.
Now, at the time that you worked for the Chamber then, because I know now they're very involved with the base.
Yes.
And so you know who the commanders are. You know who these people are
Right.
now. Did you
Right.
back then?
No.
Okay. So you may not have known if she was telling the truth or not.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And she was just talking about, you know, he's a lieutenant colonel and she is talking about her children and they're just real big into the, you know, there's some children that were in the Air Force and that sort of thing. It was an Air Force family.
How many children do you think she told you about?
She told me about like 3.
Interesting. Okay.
But she started calling her husband instead of Colonel because she
Mm-hmm.
said he was a lieutenant colonel.
Mm-hmm.
She would call him the lieutenant.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was the very first thing that I was like, that's just not correct.
Right.
That's
And if you're in a military family, you know that.
yes,
Uh-huh.
because a colonel is
Mm-hmm.
higher than a lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
You would never call a colonel
A
a
lieutenant.
lieutenant.
No.
You would either call him a colonel or
Mm-hmm.
lieutenant colonel.
Right.
But she would always say, "Oh, my husband, the lieutenant," and I tell him, she was giving me stories, and she would say, I told the lieutenant, this is what we need to do. This
Right.
is what. And to me, that just didn't sound right.
Right. Well, I mean, it's also weird the fact that she's calling her husband lieutenant. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I've met lots of officers' wives,
Right.
and they don't call them lieutenant or general. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe in play or occasional or introducing, but not just normal. But some families may do that. You know,
Right,
maybe how
right.
they interact. Okay.
hmm
Okay, go ahead.
And so, she, we had lunch. They fixed her car.
Okay.
And she was just like, okay, thank you. I'll be able to drive my car, no
Mhm.
worries, that sort of thing. She says, but before I go, she's like, I have to be in, I want to say, somewhere down south. She
Okay.
needed to be, Birmingham.
Oh, Alabama.
Alabama.
Okay.
She says, I have a funeral to go to tomorrow.
Okay,
It's
so what time of day is this?
this.
So this is at late afternoon by now, right?
This is.
Because you had lunch.
This is early afternoon.
Okay, okay. And she's going to be in Birmingham,
Bir-
Alabama the
Birmingham
next day?
for a funeral.
At what time was the funeral?
11:30 local time.
I mean, I guess you can make it if you drive all night. I've been to Birmingham from here, and it's quite a distance.
It is. And I'm like, and that was another thing that just kind of was like, that just didn't sound right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That it just didn't click. And by this time I'm like, there's something weird. Like something was telling me this is just very strange. It's just a very strange thing.
Was it just the weird facts she was giving you, or was it her body language as well and her facial expressions? Like, do you know?
I think it was both.
Okay.
Like, I mean, her car was filled. Let me just tell you that her car was filled with stuff,
Okay.
clothes, shoes, and like it just hit me at some point. It just was just like, oh my gosh, this lady it looks like she's living out of her car.
Yep.
Yep. But she was very well dressed.
Well, we got a picture of her here. I mean, she's got jewelry all over.
Yeah, she has rings on every finger,
a
nice dress, huge earrings.
Mm-hmm.
She's got, she's well put together.
Yeah, she's well put together, and her little purse and everything. I mean, she looks like a well put together person that might be a person of means.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But she's living out of her car.
But it looks like she's living out of her car. So that just kind of gets me thinking, like, is this normal? Yeah.
It's not.
And she was very nice, but there was just something was just not right. I started feeling just a gut feeling
Mm-hmm.
that something just wasn't right.
And so, like, just going into that a little bit. So,
Okay.
obviously, you've got red flags going up. So, you have indiscrepancies in her story. You've got possibly some body language and even facial expressions that you may not even know, but your brain's picking up on. But then the presence of the person, was that weird? Like, the vibe, or was it just a collection of all this stuff? You're like, man, something's wrong here.
It was both.
Okay.
The vibe and just everything that she was saying,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just picking up on certain things. I'm just like, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't feel right. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, when she's already has her car,
Mm-hmm.
and she said she was going to stop by, to say goodbye,
Okay.
and that sort of thing.
Did you have a new friend?
Right.
Yes.
And so I just was, going about my day. normal day at work, doing my computer work,
Yeah.
helping customers, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And she stops by
Like she said she
like
would.
she would.
Okay.
And I was like, well, hello, it's good to see you. How's everything going? How's your car?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, everything's going fine. And she says, you know what? Before I leave town, I would really, really love to meet your mother. She said she raised a son who is very kind, very, um, knowledgeable about the community, and I want to meet her. She raised a son right.
Okay. And so what are you thinking at this point?
At this point, I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, this is really, really weird, and awkward. Like I just was like, usually I never. I mean, I just felt something was really off.
Well, not only that, but just so people know, as far as like your personality, you're a private person.
Yes.
So very friendly, like the first face that people see, kind of, because it's hard to see you past the counter, but the first person that people see when they walk in. So you're like perfect for that position because you're welcoming, but you're a very private person. So I think that probably would have been like, excuse me,
Yes.
And then that's just an odd thing to want to do. Like I've never heard of that happening. I've never been asked, hey, can I meet your parent? You're such a good person. Well, I probably wouldn't get that though because I'm a deep personality. But so what were you think? Like obviously it's weird, but did you feel like danger weird or alarm bells or like this is just really strange?
Alarm bells.
Okay.
I was just like, like you said, I'm a very private person.
Mhm.
I don't, a lot of people don't, know a lot about me.
Yeah.
I like to keep to myself and that sort of
Yes.
thing. And she wants to meet my mom. But at the time, I was way younger
Yeah.
and I was very naive.
Mhm.
I'll admit that.
Mhm.
And I agreed.
Okay.
And
Now, were you in your 20s? Like your 20s or 30s?
yes,
So 20s.
20s.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
So
Okay.
she was like, I will follow you.
Oh, no. So she's like an older lady, too.
She's older.
So it was almost probably like another mother or a grandmother wanting
Yes.
to meet your mom and maybe like a generational thing you weren't aware of.
Yes.
Okay.
And she didn't look,
Like a killer?
like a killer. I mean, someone who would, do something like that. You
hear that a lot.
She didn't look like anyone that would make you suspicious.
So what would be your definition of what a killer looks like?
Oh gosh. I mean, someone who's not well kept up, their hair and it just, that's the first thing.
The crazy eyes.
Yeah, the
maybe?
crazy eyes and just, I don't know.
A lot of people say that. Like, most of the killers that we investigate, it's rare they look like killers. They look like upstanding citizens.
Right.
A lot of them have jobs,
Right.
and like, or they're students like Ted Bundy or Brian Koberger, that guy that, killed those 4 in Idaho.
Right.
They look very normal.
Right.
But
And a lot of times they're male.
Yes. Well, that's true. A lot of people think killers would be male, not grandma.
Not grandma, holding her Bible.
Well,
Because the whole time I've seen her,
she has her
she
Bible.
had a big, huge purse and her Bible.
You absolutely would not suspect someone holding their Bible of being a killer.
And a well-used Bible.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like
A prop.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't. You can tell it was used.
Okay. So she's got this Bible. She looks like grandma. She's, takes care of herself as far as her appearance. And she's wanting to meet your mom to probably say thanks for, having such a great son. And so you're like, well, I mean, she looks harmless. So it's weird, but let's do it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I probably would have. Well, I don't know if I would have, but I would have probably been tempted to, but I'm not as trusting. So, all right, what happened? And she wants to follow you.
She wants to follow me to my mom's house.
Okay.
Because she was like, I just want to meet her and thank her for raising a good kid, someone who's helpful, that sort of thing. So we did. And and the drive wasn't too long. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's about 2 miles from the
Yeah.
office,
Yeah.
where she lived at the time, um, and it was at this time. This is after work. This is after 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
and she follows me to the house. I get down. She gets down.
Mm-hmm.
I go into the house and I introduce her to my mom.
And what's your mom thinking?
And she's like looking at me like, what is going on?
Yeah.
She was like very confused.
Mm-hmm.
But I told her, I said, I told my mom, I said, I'll explain everything to you later, but she wanted to meet you. I was helping her today,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
I'm such a good kid. She just had to say thanks.
Yes. And she told my mom, thank you so much for raising a good kid
Mm-hmm.
and someone who's helpful and willing to help an old lady and that sort of thing. She says, I have something for you.
Oh, no. Okay.
So she had a gift to
Wow.
give to my mom.
Okay.
And I was like, that's weird.
That's really weird. Mm-hmm.
That is really, really weird. And so she pulls out this bag, and it has a name of a very well-known department store
Okay.
on the bag.
Okay.
And she opens it up, hands it to my mom, and says, I have a gift for you. I want you to have this, just as a token of my appreciation for you for raising a good kid. And by this time, I'm like, this is really weird. This
Yeah.
is strange.
Yeah.
And it was a purse,
Okay.
a brand new purse.
Like an expensive purse, you think,
An-
or mid-range, or?
I would say probably mid-range.
Okay.
But it came from a well-known department store
Yeah.
that specializes in high-end stuff.
Okay.
Clothes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, well, thank you. And she was just super confused. Like, at this point, she was...
Poor mom. She's like, what's happening?
Right? And so she handed it to my... She's like, I really got to go. I've got
She's
to
got
get
that
on the
trip
road.
to
I
Alabama.
have to go to Birmingham.
Yes.
And I have a funeral to go to, that sort of thing, and I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets into her car, and of course I stay,
Yeah.
and she gets in her car and takes off.
So when you told your mom the story,
Yes.
what did she think?
She was like, are you serious? Are you for real, kind of
Mhm.
thing? And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, Mom, this is, and I said, it's very strange, I know, but, and she was off. Like, it wasn't like she was staying,
Mm-hmm. Asking for more
asking
rides
for
or
a
a place to
ride.
stay or
Right.
anything like that.
She only asked for a certain amount of, rides.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
And she bought your lunch.
she bought the lunch,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, that's that.
Was your mom concerned, or did she say, hey, you might need to be more careful, or did she just kind of shake her head like,
She said, you need to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, I mean, she's like, you never know what,
Right.
Who you're dealing with, or,
Right.
and I said, yeah, you're absolutely right. I said, it was a very weird situation.
Yes. Okay. So she leaves, we think, to Birmingham, which, by the way, Birmingham, I want to look up and see exactly how far. So
Okay.
this is after 5 by this point.
Yes.
And
So by the time she left, this was about 5:30 in the evening, and this is summertime, so the sun, of course, is still out.
15-hour drive.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Texas is like 14 and a half of those. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so she's leaving a little after 5:30 or so to get to Alabama,
Mhm.
and she's got to be there by 11 the next day. She's going to lose 2 hours of time, so she's got to
Right.
be there by 9.
Right.
She could make it if she drove all night. Okay, all right. So continue on.
Okay. So for the longest time, didn't hear from her. Nothing.
Okay.
And one day, I get a call.
Excuse me, I had a
Bless
sneeze.
you.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think at one point I did give her my cell phone number.
Oh no. Okay.
And and it's been so long, I don't even remember when,
Yeah.
but she had it.
Okay.
So she called me,
Okay.
just out of the blue. I mean, it had been, I would say, at least a few months,
Okay.
and I hadn't heard anything. I wondered about her because at that time there was a hurricane
Okay.
that was not long after I had met her, and she was going to Birmingham. Well,
Right.
it came in through the Gulf,
So it affected that
and it
area.
affected that area.
Okay.
And I was thinking, oh, I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
You know, she went through this hurricane, if you know, and I hope everything's fine. Hope she's fine, that sort of thing. Well, she
Right.
called, and she says, "Oh, hey, you know, it's me, and you know, how are you doing?" And I thought, "Oh, I'm doing good. How about you?" I said, "I kind of been worried about you with, you know, Birmingham and all the stuff that happened there." And she says, "Oh no, honey, I'm in Reno,
Reno.
Nevada."
So this is a few months later, though.
Yes.
So she might have moved. She might be traveling.
Yeah, yeah,
But it almost sounds like she was saying, "Oh no, I didn't go there. I went to Reno."
yes,
Is what it sounds like.
right.
Okay.
And so she's like, "I'm in Reno. I have my 90-something-year-old mother with me."
Okay.
And she says, I really hate to do this, but I have to ask you if there's any way you can wire money
Oh,
to me.
here we go. I was wondering when it was going to happen. Yep.
And I said, wire money? For what? She says, oh, well, my mother. And she kept reiterating that her mother was 90-something years old. I mean, and it was like, I think she was even saying like 99. Like,
oh, good grief.
like very elderly, you know, person, just shy of 100.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like very strange. And I was like, well, out of the blue,
Yeah.
you know, this sort of thing. And I said, well, I'm going to have to, you know, think about that. And that's when the red flags were just like, okay, this
But you
is.
still aren't sure that she's a killer or anything. You're just thinking that maybe she's someone that would, you know, try to get money from you, or possibly maybe theft,
Right.
or something like that. You're still probably not at the point of, hey,
Right.
this lady might be a killer.
Yes. At this point, I didn't know. And so I said, that, you know, that's just really weird. Let me look into that. I've never wired money before through, I don't even know what company it is, but
oh yeah,
it's
Western Union
yes,
back in the day.
I think that's what it was. She's like, can you Western Union me some money?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a huge amount.
Of course not.
But it was still like substantial. And so I was just kind of, okay, that's
weird.
That's kind of weird, you know. I said, well, let me think about it. Let me think about it. I said, call me back and see, because she did not give me a phone number to call her or anything.
Oh,
she had to call
that's
me
interesting. And, well, so on your cell phone, it didn't come up back in the day? Because sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they'd come up like private or unknown.
It
and you wouldn't
said,
see the number.
I think it said like unknown or unavailable or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I couldn't really track it.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
And so she called back. I want to say the next day.
Okay.
And she was like, yes, you know. And I'm like thinking, no, that she's after. She just wants money. And this is when it came to my mind, like this is a scam. This, I mean, from the very beginning,
right?
She just wasn't being honest.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, no, I'm not giving you. I'm not wiring you any money. And she was like, why not? And by this time, she started getting angry.
Okay, so her demeanor changed.
Her demeanor completely changed when I told her no.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, well, I need this for my mother, and you're denying my mother, and her, you know, she needs care and all this stuff. Well, back in the early 2000s, our local police department had basically classes for people in the community.
Okay.
So it was basically a community outreach,
uh-huh.
and they called it the Community Police Academy.
Oh.
So where they taught you fundamentals of policing.
That's neat.
Yes. I wish they still did it.
That too. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. And
okay.
so it was, you know, basically like a class that you would go to however many times a month.
Yeah.
They would feed you, and then they would do fundamentals and their guest speakers.
And kind of teach you a little bit, like some street smarts, some things to avoid.
How to dust for fingerprints.
What? I would love that.
You know, crime scene.
Maybe we should have them do it again.
I would love that. That would be
awesome.
It was amazing. Mm-hmm. I've met a bunch of great people. I met my best friend there during the class. I mean, it was just amazing.
That's neat.
And so she's getting angry.
Okay.
Back to the phone call.
Yeah.
And she's getting angry, and I just told her, I don't know what made me say this, but I said, well, I didn't graduate from the community police academy for nothing.
That's funny. Right. So you just
And
pulled that out.
she,
Like, I'm not an idiot here. I know what's happening.
exactly. And she says, oh my gosh, you're a cop? I didn't tell her, you don't become a cop after this outreach.
Right.
You just, you do get a plaque and saying that you completed the course and all this stuff.
Okay.
And she says, oh my gosh, you're a cop. And she hung up. And I never heard from her again.
So now you're really wondering who this lady is. I
Yes.
guess, because that's interesting. So obviously she's like super sweet, wants to meet your mom, gives gifts, buys you lunch. And then when she wants money and you say no, now you see a totally different person,
Yes.
an angry person.
Right.
And then the minute you mention police, she's like out of there.
Exactly.
Okay, so what so what are you thinking at this point?
So at this point, I'm like, this is just very, very strange.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to take it upon myself.
Yes.
To go to the house that she stayed at.
Okay.
That
so
night.
You're gonna do some investigation
I
here.
did.
Okay.
Not, and this was before Google was really prevalent.
Right.
It was very hard to look things up online at this time because it's the early 2000s, And so I happened to go to this house, and it's a very elderly couple.
Easy targets usually.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's a husband and wife, very elderly. I knock on the door and I told them who I was, and I said, I am looking into your friend who had stayed here.
Yes.
May I come in? And they said, absolutely, please come in.
Okay.
So I came into the house and sat down. They invited me in, and I sat down in their living room, and I said, I'm just looking into this lady and who stayed with you. And they were just like, had this look on their face.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, what's going on? Tell me. And they said they didn't know her.
What? They didn't know her?
They didn't know her. So what happened was she parked her car near their house.
Okay.
And opened the hood and told them my car broke down. Near their house, she parked,
like she did in front of the chamber.
And like she did in front of the chamber.
Okay. And it might have been a legitimate breakdown.
It could have.
Okay.
And she's like, I'm needing a place to stay, all this stuff. And so they were like, this is just really weird too. They just said, yeah, we don't know her. We didn't know who she was. She just kind of, we popped up and we invited her into the house, and she asked us if she could stay the night. I said, okay.
They let her stay the night?
Yes.
Wow.
And so, and what shocked them the most when I was talking with them was she knew her way around the kitchen. Like, she immediately was like, thank you, came in and started cooking them dinner.
Okay, so what I was thinking, because when you were talking, I immediately get suspicious of behavior like that. And so what I was instantly thinking is that she actually staked them out first, because you're in this neighborhood and you're obviously a con artist. And so you're going to need a place, like you're looking for a place to stay. You're going to pick someone very, very old,
right, or
someone very young, because they're going to be easier prey. And I was wondering, I wonder if she like was literally going through the neighborhood looking in the windows to see who was in the house, so she would know which one to target.
Right.
So she either looked in their house and saw the kitchen layout, or she had been inside.
Right.
What did they think? Okay, so go ahead.
And so she immediately was just going in their kitchen, pulling out pots and pans, putting them on the stove, and started cooking them dinner. And,
wow.
and at this time, they were just like shocked. They didn't know what to think or what to do. They just let her.
No, see, I wouldn't have. I'd be like, girl, you're like, you need to get out of my kitchen right now.
Right?
I mean, I would have been like, what are you doing? But that's why we do this podcast. A lot of people, they just flat have no, like, it's so strange when you encounter people that are criminal in their behavior. You don't know what to do. It's so
Right.
shocking.
Right.
Okay.
So they just start talking about that she was in the kitchen and cooked them dinner and that sort of thing, and they just had this look, especially the husband. He had this look in his eye, like some like he let something happen that he wasn't comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and so he goes on to say that he well, she spent the night,
Wow.
but then she spent the night. What he told me was that day when she came in, she asked them for money.
Okay. Yeah.
She and the wife, the husband and wife looked at each other and were like, well, there's someone in need. Let's go ahead and help her.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, well, we need to go to the ATM.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so the wife drove this lady
Without the husband?
without the husband
Oh.
to the bank and withdrew money from the ATM. And from what he told me is that she was going to give her a certain amount of money. And she said, oh, no, I need this much.
Mm-hmm.
And the wife did. And I'm not super clear on how much it was, but it
Yeah.
was pretty substantial. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to say it was, anywhere between $500 and maybe $1,000.
So there was a lunch money to buy you lunch?
And I think that's how she had that money to buy lunch with. From the money that she got from the older couple that she spent the night with.
It almost makes you wonder if he was thinking, golly, what was I thinking letting my wife go with her? I mean, she could have hurt her or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then he lowers his voice and says, and comes close to me so his wife doesn't really hear. And he says, well, my wife has dementia.
Oh, okay.
So she wasn't clear.
Yes.
But she was still able to do certain
Drive.
things and drive
Okay.
and that sort of thing.
Wow.
And so, and at that point, I'm like, and it just came out of my mouth. I said, do you need me to call the police?
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah.
you want me to call the police? I will do this right now. I said, I'm looking into this lady.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff didn't seem right. I want to help you.
Yeah.
I will call the police and let's file a report.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, no. We don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Let's just let it go. And I said, and I kept saying, are you sure? I'm willing to do this for you. I told them kind of what she did with me.
Right.
That I was helping her and, getting to her car and, that sort of thing. I said, I'll help you. And he totally refused.
So when y'all went the day to get the dress, did you say, just to go back to that she had called them and the lady met her outside with the dress? Like, how did the lady know, like, to bring her the dress?
I want to say she called them somehow.
Okay.
She called them somehow, and I'm not sure because I don't remember her having a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she might have used either the phone at the mechanic shop
Mm-hmm.
or a pay phone somewhere.
Okay. And for the younger people, pay phones, you put money in there, like quarters, and then you could call. So okay, before you go on, do you think that everything was very calculated that she did? Like, for example, so she obviously, to me, she had to have known the couple was elderly,
Mm-hmm.
and she had to have some idea of the kitchen. And then when she was broken down outside of the chamber, and then you come out to help, obviously an opportunity to try to get more money out of someone, but you can't just ask straight out.
Right.
So it makes you wonder if like her giving, her kindness, even her going back to the house to maybe make you think that she was not living out of her car. Like, do you think everything she was doing was calculated, or was she more opportunistic and just going like by the seat of her pants?
I think she was flying by the seat of her pants.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it didn't seem, I don't know. It just, like, I don't, because the elderly couple's house
Mm-hmm.
had a large fence
Mm-hmm.
Around it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, and like wrought iron
Mm-hmm.
gates and that sort of thing. I mean, there was even wrought iron bars on the windows.
You couldn't see anything from
I don't
the
think,
street?
like, the way the kitchen was laid out, I don't think you could see it from the street. Like, it was kind of further back. There's a large fence, that sort of
But
thing.
why was she in that neighborhood? I think she might be a little more calculated just because she's an ex-con and they learn a lot of stuff
Sure,
inside.
sure.
So,
And you know, it's a nicer part of town.
like,
All
why
these
was
houses.
she there?
Right. There was no reason, and I'm thinking I think she staked out the neighborhoods.
That's what I think.
And then maybe parked and was seeing them maybe go, you know,
In and
leaving the
out.
house and then coming back to the house.
How do you think she knew the layout of the kitchen?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
And even the older couple who lived there,
Mhm.
they were surprised.
Yeah.
They were more shocked about that. Like, she like knew where all the pots, like, she just went in there and just started cooking.
And sometimes with kitchens, you know, things are in certain
Right.
areas.
Right.
So I could see that. But I personally have never gone into a kitchen and known where everything is. Like, I have to open up several
Sure.
cabinets to
Right.
find stuff. So that's a little bit interesting. Okay, so he doesn't want to have anything else. He just wants to put the whole experience
Yes.
behind him.
Yes. And I offered so many times,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked for their phone number, and I said, do you want me to follow up with you, that sort of thing, and they were just like, absolutely not. They didn't want to.
Okay.
And especially the husband, since the wife had some mild cognitive
Yeah.
issues and that sort of thing, and
Yeah.
so he spoke on behalf of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, we don't want anything more to do with this.
Yeah.
Let's just move on. And I never bothered them again.
And the fact that they let you in their house to talk about it was nice.
It was.
But they're like, no, we don't want to do anything else about
But
this.
they were surprised and I think a little bit relieved
Mm-hmm.
that someone had the thought of, hey, something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check into this
Yes.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think they were a little bit relieved.
That's good. That's really good because, like, let's say that she was like some type of, like a killer that just goes around killing, people,
Right,
like a serial
right.
killer or something. She could have done away with them, and no one would have known for however long. But the fact that you went to check on them is really neat because she could have harmed them or stolen
Right.
from them or something, and you wanted to follow up
Right.
and get the story and probably make sure they're all right.
And I just wanted to know, because she said, oh, these are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to get a little bit more information from them,
Mm-hmm.
just to look into her.
Yeah.
And whenever they told me that, I mean, I seriously got lightheaded whenever they said we didn't know her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? I mean, I got faint
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that, wow, this is more than
And
I
your mom,
thought.
you took her to your mom's house.
Exactly.
Did that concern you, or was it?
It did.
Yeah.
It did. I was like, now she knows where my mom lives.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I was like, would she come back?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't think so.
Especially
Just-
the cop thing.
Yeah.
Like, she freaked out when she thought you were a cop.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And never heard from her again.
Okay, so you leave here, a little bit dizzied by the knowledge.
And when I left their house, I was just in utter shock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went straight to my mom's house
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey, Mom, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
My mom's the type of person that, you can tell her anything and
Yeah.
just, that sort of thing, and she's very supportive and that sort of thing. And I told her the story,
Yeah.
went through it all, and told him about this older couple, and she was just like, "Wow, that's just nuts."
Yeah.
And and then from there, I just was just like, I don't know what else to do,
Right.
you know? And I think I started trying to look her up
Okay.
by this time, but like I said, early 2000s. This is the early
It's not easy
2000s.
to find
It's not.
anything on her even
It's
now,
not.
actually.
And it took me a while. I think I just stopped looking into
Mm-hmm.
her after a while,
Mm-hmm.
and until a few years had passed, and Google was more
Mm-hmm.
appropriate
Advanced.
and advanced,
Yeah.
and you could look things up
Yes.
easier.
Yes.
And then that's whenever I started seeing some stuff posted about her and her past.
Okay. Now, so even to this day, there is not a lot that you can find on her because I found a newspaper article, the Alamogordo newspaper from March 27th, 1972. And this is the headline is Mother is Charged in Tot's Death. And so that is a toddler. And there's a picture of her right here.
Okay.
And her name is Clotilde Coulter. And let's see. So from the article, she was 27 at the time. They called her Mrs. So she must have had a husband.
Yes.
And she was in district court. It looks like in Roswell, I think. I'm pretty sure it's in here. But she was on trial for killing her 4-year-old son named Jonathan. And so this is information you found out, right?
Yes, I actually found that article by chance. I just Googled her name, and it came up, and I was just floored. It was just one of those things like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I had no idea. And and it's saying, this happened in Alamogordo, that sort of thing.
Which is not far from us.
Not far from us. However, it has an Air Force base.
It does.
So I'm thinking, at the time when I saw this, was she a military wife?
What did you find out? Did you find?
I couldn't find anything else.
I couldn't either. There's no mention of a husband. There's no mention of anything. It was very scant information, but maybe she did, or like a lot of con artists, maybe at one time she was married to someone that was in the military, probably not a colonel.
Right.
But maybe she was married to someone in the military and it didn't work out, but that's part of her story to create trust.
Yeah.
So when you found out that she killed her son, did it make you sick to your stomach, or did you feel dizzy again, or relieved?
It made me ill.
Yeah.
Like it was just one of those things where it's just like a gut punch. And you're just like, wow, this lady was convicted of, murdering her child.
Yeah.
And it was just shock and unease. I just felt like, wow. I opened her up so much of my life to this lady, that I would never usually do. I thought I was just doing a really nice thing.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, what if? The what if started, coming along and into my mind and saying, what if she would have tried to do something, and, what would I have done,
Yeah. Well, from what I can tell, so yeah, she was tried in Roswell by a Judge Paul Sneed. He was the district judge on the bench. The ambulance personnel, so on November 25th, so 1971 is when the incident occurred, testified of seeing her running from her residence in the 1700 block of 12th Street, and she was holding her child in her arm and saying he was not breathing. when the ambulance arrived. And I guess the call to 911 happened at 4:24 a.m.
Okay.
And then so when they got there, there were no signs of life in the little boy, because again, he was only 4. His arms and legs were cold to the touch, but he had a little bit of warmth in his body, so he hadn't been dead long, but long enough where he was starting to get cold. And then he was wearing pajamas, but his body was bandaged in several locations. And so they rushed him to the hospital. And then Coulter told the officer in the ambulance, so I guess she's in there, the child is in there, and the officer is in there, that Jonathan had pulled a pan of boiling water off the stove and he burned himself, and that he was being treated by a Dr. E.J. Klump of Tularosa. Now, Tularosa, is that in New Mexico, or is that
It is.
different? Okay,
It
so
is.
how far away is it, do you think?
It's not very far away from Alamogordo.
Okay, so it's pretty close.
It's just right to the north.
Because I've been to Alamogordo, and but I don't remember Tularosa, so it's not far at all.
Right.
Okay. And when they checked his body, he had multiple bruises, abrasions, and lacerations. Some were recent and some were old. So that was the crime scene. And then the state documents, because she tried to appeal her conviction.
Right.
And she had been charged with first-degree murder, but they only convicted her of second degree. And she got, I think it was like anywhere from 10 to 20 years. I'll have to look. But the ambulance was called to the resident, and her running out with her son to the ambulance is interesting to me. Almost like, are you hiding something in the house?
Absolutely.
Huh.
Absolutely. That you don't want them coming into the house.
Exactly. Because if my son was in danger, I would be doing CPR, and then I would have someone getting the ambulance, directing them to the house.
Right.
Right? And then going in and caring for my son. But if I was trying to hide something, I would scoop them up and run them to the ambulance. So that's weird.
Right.
So the nurse tried to resuscitate Jonathan. Doctor was called. The pajamas were removed. The bandages. So there were several bandages found on his body. A bandage that went around his chest. And then when they cut the bandage, it's like it popped. It was so tight on him that it popped. I wonder if he suffocated. That's what I'm wondering.
Right.
Which would have been horrible for him. And then there were bruises and burns on his body and head. The sheriff testified that, she said, well, the child startled her when she was carrying a pan of water and dumped it on him. The father of the child, who was not her husband, testified that the child was a normal kid, and after the boy's death, he told the sheriff that on occasion he had to stop defendant from beating the child, and that the defendant had a high temper. So I think with your interactions with her, I don't think she probably would have killed anybody, but she would have gotten really mad.
Yes.
Which you witnessed.
Right.
Her getting angry with you when you said no.
Over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a nurse on duty said that the bruises on Jonathan were, quote, imprints resembling a belt buckle and multiple imprints on the child's back. And they were in a generalized area, more than 2 or 3, and they weren't consistent with spanking. And then there was a Dr. Labar. He was an expert by the defendant. He saw the child 4 hours after death. There were contusions to the head. Abrasions on the body. Some of the skin, they call it excoriation, where it was loose, which could be a burn, on the lower extremities. And then the cuts and bruises were quite recent. The cause of death was trauma, generalized, associated with malnutrition. So he couldn't find any evidence of burns across the entire body to fit her story. So basically he was, also malnourished.
Right.
So the picture that's forming is a little boy that is regularly beaten by this lady, and he's not getting enough food. So his life was hell.
Right. Right. He suffered.
He did. He suffered a lot. They called him emaciated. And they tried to get him on first degree because they said that the acts constituted torture, commission of aggravated battery, and that the acts of the defendant were greatly dangerous to life. And then they said also that the evidence shows that the decedent, a 4-year-old child, was suffering from extensive injuries of such a nature as would cause concern, if not consternation, in any mother. Descendant lived with his mother. Both defendant and decedent, were present in the defendant's home prior to the time of the ambulance was called, and from the time that they were called, the fact that the child was in pajamas and the fact that the child's extremities had lost sufficient body heat that they were described by the emergency room nurse as cool and the torso only slightly warm, it could be inferred that the child was in bed at the time that the defendant discovered that he was not breathing. And it is certainly not a reasonable hypothesis to infer that the defendant, who was the child's natural mother, sent him to bed while he was suffering from such extensive injuries, unless it further inferred that she had a hand in inflicting those injuries. The only reasonable explanation of the delay in seeking medical help was because she's the one that did this. And she got, so she was found guilty. Her jury consisted of 11 men, 1 woman, on March 28th, and she was sentenced to 10 to 50 years in prison. And what really made me angry is in one of the mother held in jail and murder case, Mrs. Coulter is a mother of 2 other children, both of whom show no signs of abuse.
Right. It was only focused on that one child.
Yep. That type of person is what we call on this podcast, Nick, a poop bird. Okay? So she's a poop bird, just in case you were wondering. So it sounds like, and what I'm wondering is that this little boy was not, was a half brother of the 2 other children, and that maybe he got the brunt of the abuse.
Right.
So did you ever find out how much time she served? Because obviously she's out by this time.
Right. I never found out how much time she served. Mm-hmm. I looked, and nothing was clear.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you were talking about the Bible, the final thought I have is, and you said it was well used.
Yes.
What I noticed about your interaction with her is, even though you're helpful, and like you said at the time you were young and naive, you were still very observant. Like, I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
Is that a natural thing with you?
Yes.
Okay. Because you're looking at the Bible, you're paying attention to what she's saying.
Right.
You're like, that doesn't sound right. So I was going to ask you if you thought that maybe she was a changed person. That maybe she had a rough life, she killed her son, she'd been, convicted, served her time, and maybe she was turning her life around. But the evidence suggests that she was a con artist.
Right. And
that she was not a different person.
Right. And that's how I felt. That's how I felt, that she was just trying to con people to get whatever she needed. And nothing more.
Makes you wonder how many people she's conned.
Right.
Like, I'm wondering about the rest of things after she left you. Like, how have there many people?
Right.
And she's probably dead at this point. I don't know. Maybe not.
I honestly, just recently, looking stuff up about her, as far as I know, she's still alive.
Yeah, I could not find much. I was really curious how long she served. And because in New Mexico, unfortunately, people get out way before they serve their time, and it's frustrating. I've been in the presence of a killer once. I didn't feel a single thing. He didn't feel wicked to me. My my sister-in-law was actually dating him, and he only served 8.5 years in New Mexico for killing his wife or girlfriend, and it was a crime of passion. And so I think he beat her to death or something, and he only served 8.5 of a 20-year sentence or so. And he was a very nice man. Like, I would have never guessed he was a killer. So obviously, like, our tagline on this podcast is be smart, be rude, and don't be a victim.
Right.
So I want to first say that you cutting it off and you saying no and, throwing out the police thing was really smart. And it may have felt rude, but it was the right thing to do. What advice would you give people, because the whole story is one where you find yourself in this weird narrative that someone is writing for you. I want to meet your mom. And you don't want to seem rude, but what would your advice be for people listening to this episode?
I would say my advice would be, be observant. And if something doesn't feel right, go with your gut.
Yes.
Go with your gut feeling. I know numerous times with me dealing with her in those couple of days, something didn't feel right. And I should have known better.
So being a nice person, because your personality is a helper personality, and that's a lot of the people on the planet. Looking back, what would you have done? What would you have said the first time you had that gut feeling?
I would have said no.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Glad I was able to help you.
I can't help you any further.
You're not going to meet my mom.
Right.
I'm not taking you anywhere.
Right. Here's some water. That's all I'm going to do.
Okay. All right. Well, be smart, be rude, and don't be a victim. Outline of a Murder is a Mr. Joseph production. What do you think, Joseph?